Okay, it'd be great to start, I guess, with a little bit of understanding as how your journey, your career path ended up in the world of IT. Yeah, how did that come about?
Well, I've always had an interest in tech. I did a degree in psychology and was actively looking for roles in tech as I was coming up to graduation, but I couldn't find any opportunities for someone like me. And everyone was mandating a STEM degree. I didn't have one. I guess that the reason I went into psychology is based on the A levels and the GCSEs that I did. So I felt quite restricted from the age of 14. I ended up stumbling into a role in recruitment for an agency. I was focusing predominantly on marketing and advertising as my industry. And I think it was maybe my fourth year in recruitment, I started getting briefed a lot of digital roles, predominantly developer roles. And that really reinvigorated my interest in tech. So I started looking for local tech companies that might have an opportunity for me, stumbled across my current organisation, 1010, saw that they had a early careers program called an academy that welcomed people from any degree discipline, any background, and thought that could be me. And this is where it gets a bit embarrassing. I applied for a place on the academy and got invited to an interview with the managing director for an hour. And I thought to myself, they're doing this graduate scheme. Does the managing director do an hour face-to-face interview with everyone? That's nice. So I turned up, and about 15 minutes into it, I realised that there'd been a bit of a mix-up and they were interviewing me for a place as a recruiter in 1010 for the academy, as opposed to a direct place on the academy. Tried to blag it for about 5 minutes and then came clean. And they said, well, we welcome anyone into the academy, but what we really need right now is a decent recruiter. So we quite like you. If you join us, you can start off in recruitment, and then if you're still interested, you can move over to the academy. We'll give you the technical test. We'll let you know where your aptitude is. And I just had a really good feeling about the company, about the culture. I really liked where they were looking to go. So I ended up joining as a recruiter and then never left the recruitment team. It turns out that my place in tech is an important one, but I don't need to be techie in order to fulfill it.
Okay, so in terms of, obviously you explained you're still in recruitment, but what's your sort of day-to-day role like? What are the sort of things that keep you occupied in the job?
Well, my position now is Academy Operations Director, so I sit on our board. So my role has changed quite a lot in the 8 years that I've been here. I'm involved in a lot of strategic work. We're constantly looking at what we're doing, trying to improve it, and that comes through feedback mostly from our clients, but more importantly, our people. I've got a brilliant team that I work with every day. So we speak very, very regularly. So it's a lot of calls. I work quite closely with our sales team to make sure that they're working on bringing in the right opportunities for our people, that the opportunities that are being brought in are reflective of the work that we do and the training that we provide, making sure that we are not overselling people's abilities, recognising that they're junior talent, that they've got a certain amount of training under their belts, making sure that we're finding opportunities for them where they'll feel confident and empowered and supported. I go to a lot of board meetings. I work closely with our SLT. So for me, it's been a really interesting opportunity to find out how a technology organisation works from the top. I get to be involved in budget planning in terms of our internal operations. So I'm a busy girl.
Yeah, and so just before we carry on with the main thrust, it'd just be good for those that don't know, just give us a quick what is it that 1010 does, so folks know that.
We are a tech consultancy. Our history and heritage is predominantly focused on quality, but our three pillars now are quality, automation, DevOps and cloud and AI. We're backed by our heritage as a strong consultancy. Our consultancy has benefited from our academy. We originally started the academy to fulfill roles in our own consultancy. And that's how we kind of fell into early careers recruitment, committing to closing the digital skills gap.
Okay, and then in terms of the industry at large, I mean, bearing in mind your own story, I guess in particular, how important do you think it is to have sort of diverse entry points? You mentioned obviously you didn't have a STEM thing which you thought maybe stopped you, but you ended up in the industry in a different way. So just how important do you think it is to have these various entry points into the IT sector, as opposed to you've got to do science, you've got to do a science degree, and then sort of follow that path?
Hugely important. I'm not for a second dismissing the requirement for people with tech skills and that traditional techie academic CV. However, there are so many skills that are not only directly applicable to IT, but also greatly beneficial. If we consider for a second someone with an English literature degree, on paper, you can't really think of anything further away from computer science. But that person's just spent 3 years at university in an incredibly analytical subject. In order to submit an assignment, that person will have to review and analyse numerous texts, compare and contrast them with each other, consider various ideologies, and raise questions throughout. And at the end of that assignment, they are formulating their own conclusion on all of that analytical work that they've done. And that in practice is pretty much how we approach testing software. If someone is fluent in another language, to learn another language, you always start with the syntax. To teach someone a programming language, you always start with the syntax. People who have worked in retail or hospitality, they're always really interesting to me. They're people that typically can work under pressure. They're strong communicators. They can problem solve pragmatically, fairly swiftly. So by broadening the entry points into the tech industry, we are welcoming highly capable talent, people who are willing to learn, can bring fresh perspectives, new ideas, skills in communication, in problem solving, in analytical thinking, customer service, adaptability. And whilst the number of underrepresented groups in the IT industry applying for computer science degrees is slowly increasing, there is still an imbalance. For example, at the moment, there is currently a 4-to-1 male to female ratio comp sci undergrad in the UK. And if organisations don't acknowledge that and diversify their entry points, that ratio is going to be reflected in the workforce. Simple as that.
Yeah, and I was going to come on to that because, as you highlighted there, the DEI imbalance in the IT sector is still regrettably quite pronounced.
Mm-hmm.
I think certainly women are sort of well under 30% representation in the industry as a whole. And I guess as well, with the AI coming on stream, diverse leadership is potentially sort of more important than ever, because I know every other day I seem to get something come across my desk, to do with AI bias, and there's potentially, do you see a real danger that sort of the current inequalities will be reinforced unless there is more of a balance? And I'm not saying all that obviously bias is intentional, but I guess it just will happen unless we get a more diverse sort of leadership. Is that fair to say, do you think?
I think it is fair to say. Diversity and inclusivity within leadership in the rapidly evolving AI landscape is critical, in my view. With AI applications already being quite wide-ranging, from recruitment to pay and performance evaluation and analytics, alongside all of the other tech advancements, AI is still in its relative infancy, and yet there is already huge evidence of bias. There was a 2019 Harvard Business Review article that demonstrated bias in AI English speech recognition software. It showed that the tech had really superior accuracy rates for white males. And this is obviously because AI learns from data, and data must be representative of the entire diverse population. So if we leave this unchecked, there'll be consequences for equality, and large portions of future generations may not be included. So diversity in leadership, in development teams, to help recognise this bias as the tech grows and the developments begin, is absolutely vital.
Yeah, and I know, for example, in your own organisation, I believe that you've undertaken not to use AI technology for recruitment. I guess you've sort of considered the benefits of automation, which clearly there are some, as opposed to having a fair, unbiased process, and you've come to the conclusion that AI isn't for you. Just, I guess, be good to understand a bit more about that sort of thought process.
Yeah, that's right. We don't use any AI within our recruitment practices. That's not me saying that we never will. But right now, we haven't found one that can replicate how we do what we do to the quality level that we do it. We recently trialed an AI tool with 20 of our current high-performing employees, and this tool told us that 11 of them should be rejected. Um, it's a tricky one because we're a consultancy. We service many clients from varied industries in different locations with wide-ranging company cultures, team structures. There really isn't a one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to our recruitment. An exceptional high performer for us in one client, that might not translate to another client because of their company culture, because of their personality types, because of their team or their management. And to be honest, I'd like to think that these AI tools will be more of an add-on as opposed to an instead of, because I truly think that certain assessments specifically focused on soft skills cannot be fully taken out of the hands of humans. The data that AI is able to analyze and report on is valuable, but the opinion of a hiring manager who knows their team inside out, that can't be replicated in my view. And I think that in the market at the moment, especially since COVID, the appreciation for soft skills has grown quite dramatically. And I mean, let's bear in mind that since all of these AI tools came out and people have started using them and businesses have really implemented them, New York City actually introduced that new law in 2023 that was designed to ensure fair hiring and promoting practices for employers as a result of so many organizations implementing AI recruitment tools and practices. I think we as businesses just need to be mindful at the moment in our approach to AI in hiring. We need to set the standard for ethical use in promoting those practices. So I'm not saying never for us, I'm saying not right now. I think that it's got a little bit of a way to go before it can replicate what humans are able to do.
Okay, and in terms of helping to address DI issues within the IT sector, it could be good to understand how important you think things are, such as mentoring, sponsorships, I guess transparency, and even role models. I'm often told there aren't enough women sort of high enough up in companies to inspire the next generation. Just your thoughts, I suppose, as to how some or all of those are crucial moving forward, or at least well, certainly now and into the future.
I think they're absolutely vital. Samsung recently conducted some research with 2,000 Gen Z women, and they found that 61% of the people that were surveyed said that if there were more female role models for them to look up to, tech would be a more attractive career choice. 34% said that they didn't learn enough about tech at school to consider it as an option. 22% said they felt steered away from tech relevant subjects at school. So I think it's up to tech leaders to help break down the barriers to entry, to be more visible, and to take practical and meaningful steps. Social media is a big one. I think if more tech leaders, more role models went onto social media, like TikTok, for example, Instagram, where young people are looking to get a lot of their information, making yourself visible on that, offering advice and guidance, or even just talking around your story would be really beneficial. And I think that the proper facilitation of mentoring young women entering the industry, ensuring that they feel supported and empowered and sponsored as they're embarking on their career, is huge. Imposter syndrome in women is still a massive issue, often due to gender imbalance in the teams that they're working in, a lack of representation, and unfortunately sometimes unconscious bias within tech teams. Having a strong mentor, someone that can help advocate for change with you, who will challenge your negative thoughts that you're having about yourself and your own abilities, and someone that's just there for you to provide guidance, can definitely help alleviate any stresses or worries that young women have. And speaking, I guess, specifically about my experience, when I was in the recruitment team, I recall very clearly that when I was trying to offer people jobs, I'd spend max 10 minutes on the phone to a male. And it would be frequent practice for me to spend up to an hour on the phone to a female candidate who was saying, I don't know if I can do this, I don't have any experience in tech, and me just reinforcing over and over again, you've earned your place on this program. You did well on the tests. You did brilliantly in the interview. You demonstrated such a great attitude. You demonstrated teamwork. You've shown that you have the right to be here. You deserve it. And I would more than willingly, more than happily do that over and over and over again, just to reinforce that message. And today in my role on the board, I try still to be a good role model, to be a supporter, to be someone that sponsors young women coming into the company. I'll join every assessment centre and reinforce the message that the recruitment team has perpetuated throughout. I'll talk to all of the candidates at this final stage of their recruitment process with us and talk about the mentoring structure that we have at our company, reassure them that we aren't just looking for the techiest people, that there's so much more to being a great technologist than just being able to code already, reinforcing the importance of soft skills and a positive attitude. And following this, when a cohort of Academy consultants join us, I'll join them for an admittedly quite long chat, and I'll just talk them through my background, my achievements, my failures, my battle against imposter syndrome. It always evolves into a really great discussion during which other people will share and will offer advice to each other. And these conversations are often quoted back to me a year, 2 years down their journey with us. So I think transparency, ownership, mentoring, role models are absolutely vital. And my team and I try our very best to live by that and promote it actively.
Okay, and you've already mentioned, but maybe just you might want to say a little bit more in terms of the importance of tech skills. Clearly, if you work in the tech industry, there's a lot of requirement in plenty of the job roles, I guess, to be, have some level of technical skills or at least an aptitude to pick those up. But do you think generally, though, the industry is a bit too much focused on that as opposed to understanding, as that you did outline earlier, but I don't know if you want to say more just about, other relevant attributes to do with adaptability, communications, problem solving, just the sort of mindset that people can bring, which is very helpful in the IT industry.
Absolutely. I mean, my view is that tech is a team sport. Communication is absolutely key, and without it, the whole thing falls apart. Soft skills such as emotional intelligence, creativity, interpersonal communication, ethical reasoning, all of these skills are necessary for leadership, for healthy growth, for adaptability, for creativity. And they're irreplaceable. The ability to understand and manage emotions and human behaviour, that's essential in fostering trust with your colleagues, resolving conflict and inspiring teams, and having adaptable critical thinking based on unexpected challenges is a skill that has to remain integral in tech. And I would argue that those skills are more important than being a really great techie. A survey actually conducted by LinkedIn showed that currently 93% of professionals marked soft skills as more important than tech skills, citing that you can teach tech skills, but you can't teach necessarily soft skills as easily. So I don't think I'm alone in recognising this. And in our recruitment practices in the academy, I would much rather hire someone with exceptional soft skills, with the right attitude, than someone who is already absolutely brilliant in terms of their tech skills. I would pick the soft skills every time.
Okay, and just in sort of finishing, broaden out the conversation a little bit, I suppose. And why do you think there are particular reasons, or why is it that far too many businesses, sadly, I mean, within the IT sector, and I guess just more generally, they still don't get it that a lack of a credible DI strategy is sort of limiting to a certain extent, because obviously if folks don't see themselves represented within an organization as a potential customer, they may well go somewhere else. So what's going wrong? Why is the DEI message not, striking a chord with everyone? Right.
My simple answer: complacency, short-term thinking, and outdated mindsets. Some organisations misunderstand D&I as a box-ticking exercise, as a compliance requirement rather than a strategic advantage, and that's their loss. They focus on meeting quotas instead of embedding inclusivity truly into their culture, into their recruitment, into their leadership structures. And as a result, they really miss the true value of D&I, which is that diversity fuels creativity and innovation and ultimately market growth. They may fail to see the link between DEI and business performance. The data's there, it's clear. Diverse teams outperform. And despite this, businesses just still fail in some instances to make the connection between DEI and long-term profitability. And some leaders, I think, resist investing in DEI because they don't see the immediate ROI. But diversity isn't about quick wins. It's about building a resilient, adaptable workforce that can respond to changing market demands and consumer needs. And the next generation of employees and customers, particularly Gen Z, expect businesses to promote diversity and inclusivity. So for the organisations that aren't prioritising that at the moment, they risk losing top-tier talent and becoming ultimately irrelevant, I guess, in the eyes of socially conscious consumers.
Yes, I suppose on a positive side, as you say, the younger generations, if you like, have DI almost inbuilt, so
Yeah.
that's good. But obviously, there's a way to go until their, I suppose, influences within the workplace. But just sort of final thoughts. I mean, you've been in, I think you said eight years, so hopefully you've seen some changes for the good within the IT sector, but more to be done. And I suppose I have to ask, and I mean, I know some people, we have to tread on eggshells or not, but there's clearly a certain pushback from the other side of the Atlantic, at least when it comes to some of these issues, and therefore the debate's getting a bit muddy. Just your thoughts, I suppose, on as to how optimistic you are things can keep progressing. Do you worry there's going to be any backlash and people are going to sort of take their lead from what's going on there and sort of shut down all this? I mean, clearly lots of companies already apparently removing sort of words and stuff from their website so they don't get. I mean, it's a difficult situation. But are you at all worried about it, or do you think the sort of the proper approach will win out, if you like?
Well, in my 8 years, I've definitely seen some positive changes in the IT sector when it comes to DE&I. The industry on the whole, I think, has listened relatively well to the well-documented diversity challenges it was facing and has taken proactive actions to respond and rewrite what's going on. I guess a part of that is the rise in interest in recruit, train, deploy early careers models such as 1010s. It's allowing organisations to bring in diverse junior talent relatively risk-free, build them into their own teams. But I think inclusivity practices are where the main work still needs to be done to ensure that organisations are empowering, looking after, and then ultimately retaining that diverse talent. With regards to the second part of your question, I absolutely am fearing a backlash off the back of what's going on the other side of the Atlantic. It's a scary time. I mean, the US president, what was it that he called DEI programs? It was dangerous, demeaning, and immoral. And I find that petrifying. His administration is currently threatening to withhold federal funding for public schools that haven't eliminated DEI practices. I have no words on how damaging that is, in my view. I'm hopeful, perhaps naively, that the UK's legal system will help to protect DEI policies. We've got obviously the Equality Act that protects against discrimination, and since 2017, organisations are required to report their gender pay gap if they have over 250 employees. Any companies listed on the London Stock Exchange are required to publish board diversity data against their set targets. And part of that is that 40% of their board should be women. However, the worry is obviously that the US president's rhetoric may lead to intolerant attitudes in the workplace becoming the norm. And I think that we should all just be very aware of what's happening and hold ourselves accountable to keep perpetuating the message that DEI is so important. Talking about it is so important. And while there have been positive changes, there is more to be done. And there is a current threat that we can't let win.
And just maybe finally, do you think the major problem is that people just don't understand what DEI really means, and that they do think it's like a sort of, quotas and all the rest of it, whereas fundamentally it's just encouraging everyone in the same way when you go to university, you bump into so many people from so many different backgrounds, cultures, and it just helps you be more aware of a person. It's a similar sort of trying to encourage your mindset. So, if you can encourage, so you understand that your customers are male, female, etc., not just a certain type, and that's what's important, just to have an open mind to understand the importance of getting different people, different backgrounds, etc. Whereas it's sort of misrepresented as this: you must have this, you must do this, which isn't necessarily the case, but it's just encouraging people not to exclude folks because of certain characteristics. Just, I suppose,
Yeah.
your thoughts as to why it's going wrong, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I think that point of yours is exactly it, nail on the head. No one loves just being given a firm set of rules, do they? I think rather than just saying you've got to do this, more needs to be done about explaining why, explaining the business benefits, educating, explaining, demonstrating the benefits of gender diversity, neurodiversity, racial diversity, sexual orientation diversity in your organization, what that can give you. Explaining that varied perspectives means more innovation, improved collaboration, inclusivity, and educating people that, well, by giving them examples that are relevant and pertinent to their own business, I think would be much more valuable than just giving people a set of targets that they need to hit and not giving the context as to why.
Okay, I mean, it's been great to chat and some brilliant insights into what is obviously a complicated topic, and as you say, at the moment it's not necessarily as good as it should be, but hopefully things will move. And I say my own view is clearly progress is being made, but the good news is the younger generation, I mean, all my sons, for example, sort of 30ish or under, they all get it, and I think their generation do more. So hopefully over time it will happen organically, but obviously in the meantime it's important that the older folks kind of get it as well. But I'll stop rambling, but I really appreciate your time and the insights you've given, Jenny. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It was great to talk to you.